Hello, and welcome to Gimme Empathy, a podcast about people's habits and hobbies and values and lives. I'm your host, Scott Mercer. I've been a busy little bee, been so very busy making podcasts for you. It's been a very busy time in my life. It's going to get easier soon though, because as of July, after the end of financial year, my hours at work are going to be reduced a bit, which is a good thing. It's a very good thing. I'll have more time to work on things. At the moment, I'm not having a lot of leisure time outside of editing this podcast and doing band and radio stuff. I'm not even keeping up with all my stories, all the TV I love to watch so much. Pretty much the only thing I'm absolutely not missing every week is Better Call Saul. I think it's hard to say because it's been off the air for so long, but I think I actually like it more than I did Breaking Bad. There's just something about Bryan Cranston that makes me think he's a bit of a showboat of an actor. I don't know. On the podcast today is my friend Jesse Collyer. I've known Jesse for a very, very long time, and we talk about our days at school together, discovering indie rock together in the mid-noughties while we were both at uni, his life as a doctor since he finished his medicine degree, his recurring knee injury that was exacerbated by a mosh pit at Splendor in the Grass. And we talk a bit more about me in this episode. I do a bit more of the yapping in the second half. I talked to Jesse about one of the things that's happened in my life this year that in part led me to start this podcast, I guess. So here we go. Here's my friend, the good doctor, Jesse Collyer. That's all right. If you want to swing that mic towards you, it should be just about at mouth level. Get nice and close.
How close do you have to get to these things?
Probably like a hands.
This is like your professional thing, man. You're always with microphones and shit. So,
yeah, move it however you need to.
even with music and that, let alone radio.
I'll just check those levels. If you want to just tell me, like, what'd you eat for breakfast this morning?
I ate cereal with soy milk, and I put banana in it today for the first time in a while. You know, chop up some banana, which is a habit I should get into more often. And some juice, some V8 juice, which is good because it's got, you know, veggies in it and fruit, and it was at half price at Coles, so I got 3 bottles of the stuff.
I tried to get into V8 juice for a little while, but it just tastes too nasty to me. I think it's tomato. It's because that's a tomato-y thing, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't always have tomato. There was one that I deliberately avoided because it looked like it was mostly tomato. It was just bright red.
Yeah.
But they've got, I don't know, like 7 or 8 different varieties at the moment. So I, you know, picked a few. Picked one that I tried to get ones with least apple in them.
Because, yeah, I like apple.
Well, I tried to get less apple because.
Oh, okay.
Because apple sets off Liz's sort of. She doesn't sit well with her stomach. So I try to get ones with less apple in them.
I've not heard of an apple intolerance before. Is that like a particular acid that's in apples or something?
I think it's more of it's possibly an acid. I'm not sure what the exact chemical structure is, but I think it's possibly some sort of sugar or nutrient, possibly a carbohydrate. And so, yeah, V8's it's good stuff. You know, I even as a vegetarian probably don't eat as much fruit as really? I pretty much only eat bananas.
Let's introduce you first, and then we'll get back to this because diet is a thing I'm interested in.
Okay.
So who are you? Who are you, guest?
I am Jesse Collyer.
Dr. Jesse Collyer.
Dr. Jesse Collyer.
Doc Collyer. Doc Collyer. Do you often get Doc Collyer?
No. Occasionally I get Doc. Yeah.
Because to me, like, Doc Collyer sounds like a character in a Western. Like, oh, I got to get to that McGillicuddy kid got shot up real good. He's over at Doc Collier's.
Yeah, I almost think Doc is a good nickname for someone who's not a doctor.
Yeah.
But I'm also just newly Jesse McGregor Cricket Collier officially as my full name. So this is
what?
So my mother's full name is Kim Cricket.
Right.
And this is a new name that she chose, possibly 15 years ago, she changed her last name, her maiden name, from Brownridge to Cricket because she loves cricket and she loves crickets.
My mother also changed her name after her first marriage and just made up a new one.
What does she make up?
My mother was born Ruth Bingham. She got married to a guy in the 70s. I'm sorry, I can't remember his surname. And then she got divorced and then changed her surname to Rowan. And then when she married my dad, did not change her name again. And she's still Ruth Rowan.
So she chose Rowan. That's a really nice last name.
Yeah, she chose well. And it alliterates.
What's the full name?
Ruth Rowan.
Ruth.
Ruth.
Ruth Rowan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Well, my name alliterates a little bit now. Jesse McGregor Cricket Collyer just rolls off
Cricket Collyer, yeah. Okay, so where's the McGregor from?
So McGregor that's just, my middle name, which was, I've named after a guy who was a friend of my parents. His name was Mac, and I've never met him. Apparently, he hasn't really been friends with my parents since a year or two after I was born. Nice guy, though, apparently. No falling out there, just fell out of touch.
So you were born Jesse McGregor Collyer?
I was born Jesse McGregor Brownridge Collyer. And the problem with Brownridge, so that's what I've changed. So I'm not Jesse McGregor Brownridge Collyer. I'm now Jesse McGregor Cricket Collyer. Brownridge was my mum's maiden name, but that was her father's name. And since I was born, turns out he's a bit of a wanker. So she dropped his name, and I've been trying for years since I was a kid to lose the name Brownridge. And I've even managed, I've got a driver's license now that doesn't have Brownridge on it. It's just Jesse McGregor Collyer. I've got a few IDs that don't even have Brownridge on them except for my passport. But yeah, so no, I changed the name recently. And the reason I changed it officially is because I'm getting married soon, and because I'm getting married. I just learnt this. The celebrant told me, the celebrant we fired, at a wedding, you have to pronounce the full name of each of the people who are getting married. And you have to say it at some point. It doesn't have to be, in the middle of the ceremony or whatever, but it has to be at some point during the ceremony. And if I had left Brownridge in there, I can just imagine my mum just like coughing on the side, wanker, So I figured I'd change that, and I did actually. I like to think I officially changed it about 10 years ago. It was Mother's Day, and I wrote down on a piece of paper like, I officially hereforth change my name to Jesse McGregor Cricket Collyer. I shall be known as this. And I signed it and I gave it to my mum, and she was very happy, but I never actually changed it by deed-poll. And but bugger that, my name is what I say it is. So, but now it's official, so they have to say it at the wedding.
So Jesse, how do we know each other?
We went to school together. Went to Western State School together, represent, and State High, Brisbane State High as well. I don't know if we went to preschool together.
No, because I went to Corbett Street, and most of the other West End State School kids went to that one in Scott Street, I think, that was just opposite the primary school. Did you go there, to that one?
No. Oh, actually, yeah, I did. But I only went there like one day a week. I was up in Mitchell Street, closer to Hill End, most of the time, and we got lucky and got to come down to the preschool at Scott Street. Actually, I would have just assumed you were there because your name's Scott.
Yeah, no, funnily, they don't just let you in for free if it's in a street that's your name.
Oh, well, that's a shame, yeah.
So I think we were first in the same class together in grade 3. Is that right, Mrs. Barroso?
Well, we were definitely in Mrs. Barroso's class together, if you recall. I mean, I know that I was there, but I was in Mr. Crook's class before that, Miss Chai. You weren't in
I wasn't in that one. So when you're in grade 2, would that have been...
Miss Chai in grade 2 and Mr. Crook in grade 1?
Yeah, no, I had Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Triandis in grade 2 and Mrs. Beck in grade 1.
Oh, man, I had Mrs. Beck like one day a week or something like that when I was in grade 2. I had Mrs. Chai and Mrs. Beck. And oh my God, Mrs. Beck was like, I don't know if she'll ever listen to this, but she was the worst teacher. She was terrible. She told, for some reason when my dad had the parent-teacher interviews, she was the one doing the parent-teacher interview, even though she wasn't the main teacher. And she told my dad she thought that I might have ADHD or ADD as it was back then, and that I should probably get checked out. And he just said that her teaching probably wasn't stimulating enough or something like that.
Well, you were a bit of an unruly child in primary school. Like, I don't remember if I ever witnessed this myself, but I've heard the story quite a few times, how in grade 3 you got up on your desk and proclaimed you were Superman and were jumping around and shit.
Yeah, I don't know how that story got around because I don't actually remember it.
I'm sure. Oh, I thought you told it to me at some point because I don't remember it myself.
Well, I don't remember it myself either, but I've told the story a few times because it's been told to me. But I'm sure it's something that I did. It sounds like something I would have done.
It does.
I gather that I basically just stood up on the desk, yelled, "Superman," and then jumped and like literally didn't put my hands out at all to stop myself from hitting the ground. Maybe that's why I don't remember it because I had a concussion. But when we had the year 7 graduation, like that's such a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
They sat each of us down with like the deputy, and she'd ask people like, what are some of your memories? And apparently one or two kids said that memories of primary school included me jumping off yelling Superman.
Oh, wow. Well, that must have happened if so many people remember it.
Yeah. Must have happened, yeah.
So we weren't actually friends for quite a while in school.
No, not friends, but I think we always got along just fine.
Yeah. But yeah, we definitely weren't really in the same friendship groups till probably really the end of high school, I think.
No, the start of high school.
You're right. In grade 8, you're right. We were in the same form class in grade 8.
Yeah, we were the only West End State School kids in our class. Me, you, and
that's
Yuri
right.
Nesvik.
Yeah, and you were friends with Jackson Chen, who was like the smartest guy in the world, and he became. Was he Dux in the end?
Yeah, he was Dux in the end. Good old Jacko Chen. Well, he was sort of our fourth wheel, or sort of. It was us three and Jacko, and who would have thought that he would become Dux one day?
I think everyone would have. He was a genius.
He was an absolute machine. Yeah, he was a funny guy. But yeah, that was good because without you two, I was always very shy. So having you and Yuri from West End State School, that was good. You know, and we had some good times. And then probably not until like later in high school did we hang out more again.
Yeah, and then really after high school, I don't actually remember how we kept in touch after high school and like why I kept in touch with you specifically. To be honest, I had closer friends than you in high school, I think.
Yeah, same. Well, it was good because we were West End.
Yeah.
And sure, we both still hung out with other West End kids, like from West End State School. And that was sort of really good that, you know, you used to hang out a lot with a few of the guys from West End State School, like JJ and Will and Angus and that.
Yeah.
And I still used to hang out also with a few other guys from West End State School, like Muhammad and Michael. Yeah. And it was great seeing that, you know, through all these years through high school, we still hung out with these primary school fellas. And yeah, I think I always felt like I was like a recurring character in that television series, which was your friendship group, if you know what I'm saying. Like I would pop in there every now and then, and I was good friends with all the guys that you used to hang out with as well.
That's a super interesting thing to say. Something I think about sometimes is that, or something I assume about other people, is that everyone thinks that they're the central character of the story and it's their story. But there's a lot of people in your life who are not other main characters. Like they wouldn't be in the main Buffy credits, you know, they'd be special guest star. But the other people don't regard themselves that way. But you actually did regard yourself as a secondary character among some other people. Like you recognize that. Yeah,
definitely. I think I did. I was like that for a few television shows. Maybe I was like the Jay and Silent Bob or something like that.
Or you were the Detective Munch.
Who's the Detective Munch?
You know, okay, so Detective Munch, he was played by Richard Belzer. He was that tall guy who always wore sunglasses, and he was in a bunch of different cop shows. I think one of his first appearances was on Homicide: Life on the Street, but then like he later appeared on Law and Order, NYPD Blue, a bunch of other cop shows, a bunch of other shows that weren't related. Like he was on the X-Files. He was on like The Simpsons, and he was on Arrested Development.
He played the same character in the X-Files as Arrested Development.
Yeah, I think even on 30 Rock, like as late as that.
I thought that X-Files was more serious.
It is. That's the weird thing. But he was this recurring character who would span multiple TV universes as this one guy. It was kind of a television industry in-joke, I think, to have Munch on your show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be the Detective Munch of yeah, maybe a number of like West End State School, you know, groups. I think we had a good thing going, because we had 70 of us in our primary school going into a class of 400 at Brisbane State High School, and I think we held pretty strong. We had that because we pretty much all went to Brisbane State High School, whereas the rest of the school, Brisbane State High School, was people getting in by selection, scattered from different schools. So we already had that camaraderie, and we stuck through.
I sometimes wonder how much harder it must have been for kids who didn't come from West End, because we were definitely the largest cohort from a single primary school that fed into State High, just because of geography. But yet, like if you came from, I don't know, Holland Park or Logan, or like there were some kids who came from Ipswich to go to State High. I can't imagine what it must have been like, first day of grade 8 to have all these weird inner city kids.
Yeah, no, I was very lucky that you and Yuri there, because I would have been pretty shy. I can't imagine I don't make friends very quickly. I sort of take a long time to ease myself into friendship groups and that sort of thing. Yeah, but I'm just trying to think how we ended up still being good friends after high school. Because
I remember there were certain things that kind of bound us. Like I started teaching you guitar at some point.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it.
Which meant like that we were setting an activity that we did together regularly. Like you'd come over once a week or whatever.
And it was like every Thursday for a whole year, I think.
Right.
Did we watch TV at the same? I think we watched Lost as well.
Oh yeah, Lost.
I'd come over on a Lost night.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. I think that was good, and then I just got a bit slack and stopped playing guitar. I still got your guitar, by the way. Yeah,
it survived a house fire.
It survived a house fire.
I was really happy to hear that when your place burned down, the guitar.
Yeah, you were really happy. I remember. Yeah.
And the cats are okay, and your mum as well.
Yeah, well. But the guitar survived because it was downstairs, but the rest, the whole upstairs was destroyed. And then the one of the rooms upstairs, like my mum's bed, fell through the ceiling and proceeded to destroy the kitchen downstairs, which wasn't even fire affected. But yeah, the guitar survived. It's very much out of tune. Every now and then when Steve comes over, he tunes up the 5 strings that are currently on it and, plays a few chords. But sometimes I imagine myself like as a Jimi Hendrix, like finishing, I don't know, Red House at Woodstock with only 5 strings. But no, I don't think so. I don't think I've really played a song on that for about a year or two, I'm afraid.
Well, another thing we had in common was listening to music, not just playing music. You really got into a lot of cool indie rock bands around the same time I was looking for a bunch of cool indie rock bands to get into. And you had a bunch of, you were always telling me about these cool bands you're listening to, like the Elephant Six record label collective.
Gee, I forgot about them.
And Apples in Stereo, all that kind of stuff.
Oh man, Apples in Stereo and Nutrient Milk Hotel, those are some memories.
And Adam Brody's band from the OC, what was that?
Yeah, I can't remember what they were.
Big in Japan? Something like that?
Yeah, they were called Big Japan, I think, because Big in Japan was the track by Alphaville, which was also the band who had Forever Young, which was covered by that band.
Youth group
that got the big hit. I don't know if that's how I got onto... But Adam Brody was the guy. It was Seth Cohen from the OC, and I was very impressed with... They had a few good songs.
Oh, man, and fucking Death Cab and the Shins were probably the 2 biggest ones you introduced me to.
Was that me?
Yeah, that was you.
I feel like Zach Braff in Garden State
introducing
you
to the
Zach Shins.
Braff. Yeah, you totally were.
Yeah, that was some good times, man. I don't... these days with music, I make playlists. Like I'll have a 2017 playlist and I'll just add tracks throughout the year in 2016. And I think if I get to 100 tracks for a year on that playlist, then I'm doing pretty well. But going back to like 2006, and I probably would have had like thousands of songs from that year. That was such a good year, like discovering indie indie rock, I should say.
Some of it was pretty pop.
Yeah, some of the more jangly pop, jangly rock, like the Shins and Death Cab had some more poppy side of stuff going on. And yeah, I don't know, the Killers retrospectively were pretty pop, but there was a lot of really obscure shit as well, like the Neutral Milk Hotel. Oh my god,
they're not so obscure these days. They're kind of
really?
They're definitely one of the bigger cult bands. Did you go see them when they came out here?
No, when did they come out?
This was like 3 years ago or something. They toured. They got back together and they toured, and they played the Tivoli. It was fucking packed. And I saw, that was probably the gig I saw the more people I knew in the crowd than any other gig, because you just find out everyone loves Neutral Milk Hotel, and it was just magic.
So are they still together?
No, they just kind of toured. It might have been like no, it wasn't quite the 20th anniversary of Aeroplane, but yeah, I think that they did a big world tour. I think maybe someone like needed money for, I don't know, a sick relative or something. But they did a big world tour and they haven't done anything since.
Well, dude, I think that, those were the heydays back around the late noughties. We were going to watch music, probably at least once a fortnight, see some live music or something like that. We'd go to Splendor in the Grass together and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we did.
But then lately we haven't so much, and maybe that's why I've missed out on Neutral Milk Hotel. I can't believe that. Devo.
We did. We went to Splendor a couple of times together. One time, I think it's the only thing I ever won in my life in a competition. I won tickets to Splendor in the Grass, and I took you with me because you were my main music squeeze.
Oh my God, I'm just remembering now that clip that you did that won you those tickets. Holy, that was the most hilarious thing. So it's Scott wearing...
So it was a competition set up by the record label Due Process, which is now a subsidiary of Universal. But so they had a thing. There was an English band called Dan and Aykroyd.
Oh, yeah.
And they were
Are they still around? They were pretty rubbish, I have to say.
Probably not. So they were playing Splendor. They were represented by Due Process. And Due Process had a competition where you had to submit a video of yourself saying the band name, Dan and Aykroyd. And whoever said it the most entertainingly won tickets to Splendor.
Yeah, that was pretty much the thing they had going for them, was that name. And somehow the most obvious thing someone could come up with from Dan and Aykroyd was what won you the tickets.
It was so obvious. So I think what sealed it was the hat, though.
The hat. The afterthought.
So I made a video of myself on my phone, and I was wearing an enormous novelty Mexican sombrero that was like rainbow colored. And I was reading the band name off a computer screen, and it sort of went something like this. Aykroyd, Aykroyd.
Yes, and somehow that won you, but I think it was the novelty size hat, which was just, I'm gonna stand out. That's what you got to do, somehow stand out. And the fact that I think you had deliberately shot the video at 90 degrees, so like it was sideways.
Oh, did I? That was not deliberate.
No, I thought, because I thought like they wanted it to, you wanted to look like it was really just like a spur of the moment, some idiot trying to record something. And I think you did very well. And we got to sit behind the
side of stage for Dan and Aykroyd.
For Dan and Aykroyd. I did download about like 6 of their songs, and I don't know, maybe one of them was good. They were a lot more hardcore when they played live, I think.
Yeah, they sounded kind of like a party rock kind of band on record. But yeah, they were a bit rockier live. So, and that year, because I tried to buy tickets, I went to Splendor in the Grass, I think 7 years in a row.
Damn.
But this one year when the Flaming Lips were playing, I missed out on tickets just because it's always a giant bloodbath trying to get tickets on their website. I missed out on tickets and then magically won this competition. And I was so happy I did, because when the Flaming Lips played that year, that's like... They took ages to come out. They were having some technical dramas, but when they came out, Wayne burst through the backdrop of a woman's vagina in his enormous inflatable ball, and when the confetti cannons shot and like it was just raining confetti from every angle, that was one of the happiest moments of my life. And they started playing Race for the Prize.
Yeah, that's definitely a memory that sticks with me, because he was in a giant ball, like a hamster ball thing, and I think that there were lots of like confetti type, pieces of coloured paper inside there as well. And he proceeded to, during the show, crowd surf. I think, didn't he crowd surf in the ball?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ran the ball out over the crowd, and it's actually easier, I think, to keep the ball in the air than a person's body because it's smooth, I guess.
Yeah, I remember when the one time I was close enough to a crowd surfing rock star, I suppose, that I touched them. I was pretty excited, but I had just dislocated my shoulder like a couple of days before, so I was very tentative. I basically just, pointed a finger up there and just touched her. But that was Patience from the Greats. I was super excited because I was a big fan of Patience from the Greats. They had some good stage presence. But that Flaming Lips show was pretty amazing. There were about a dozen of those giant balls bouncing around. And every now and then someone would pop one with like a lighter or something and all this confetti would explode. Yeah, Splendid in the Grass, that was some great days. Saw the Shins there.
So, Jesse, we haven't seen each other in a while, actually. Probably the last time would have been the Dandy Warhols.
For real?
I think so.
Wow. When was that? That was probably last year?
Last year, like October, November or so.
Yeah, this year's flown past.
So you were asking before about the podcast, like what it's about and all that. Basically, it's about... I talk to people like about their habits and hobbies and interests and values and views and stuff as kind of a way of developing my own empathy. Because like I've re-examined a lot of stuff this year because a lot of stuff's happened. And one of the things I noticed was that I wasn't getting why other people do things and why they view the world in certain ways. And like that can be just from really superficial stuff to like people like I don't use music streaming services. I don't have a Spotify account or anything. I still buy stuff or download it and put it on an MP3 player and cart it around with me like that, which I understand the way you're looking at me like you're like that's weird. No, I know
like a
that's
proper
weird.
MP3 player.
Yeah, like
respect.
Probably one of the last ones they would have made. It's a SanDisk. It's really good.
Also, this is one that's like 10 years old or something.
I think it probably would have been made 6 years ago, but I'm sure they don't make MP3
I don't know how
players
you can fit
anymore.
all your tracks on there. Anyway, sorry to criticize.
But like this is the thing. Like I don't understand how or why people like say, oh yeah, sure, I'll just pay you $5 a month forever, and I'll have access to a certain amount of songs. But maybe not necessarily everything I want to listen to. Because like I listen to a lot of local and obscure shit as well. And so it just so stuff from that to bigger things like Brexit and Trump. Like thinking how can people possibly look at these people and these movements in the same way? Like how do we are we even seeing the same reality? How are we experiencing the world? We can't possibly.
Oh, I'm at a loss like you with that stuff as well. So
like basically I'm starting small. I'm just talking to people I know about just their habits, how they get through their lives. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be about the big questions all the time.
Give me empathy. So by doing this, you want to become more empathetic, or you want to utilize your empathy more, or
well, I guess to increase my own empathy and not look at people so weird when they tell me they watch Channel 7 or something and vote for One Nation, but also kind of
which pretty much go in the same category.
but also because it's like I could do that just by talking to people. The reason the microphones are here is also to share that with other people as well, so other people can hear how other people live. I don't know how much of an audience it's going to get, or where. I don't know how to get an audience really beyond my friends on Facebook.
Well, besides, you can go back and study what people have said. If you want to learn, you can go back and listen and remember. Oh yeah, that's why they do that, or get some insight that way. I find that I have to read things several times, to solidify it in my memory.
Now, I want to talk to you about being a doctor. How long have you been a working doctor now?
2.5 years.
That's probably in the period where we've seen each other a bit less and less.
No surprise there.
You've been very, very busy at work, in a very serious relationship. You're now engaged. Very understandable. But like, I'm really curious about that lifestyle and like how far along you are on the path to becoming JD from Scrubs.
I don't know. Maybe I am already JD from Scrubs, because I think JD from Scrubs he started as an intern. That's his first year working as a doctor. He's just graduated from medical school. He's fully qualified as a doctor, and he starts taking on that responsibility as Dr. Dorian. So that's what I did 2.5 years ago, and I've done my internship like he did, and then so now I'm still working as a resident, like JD was very proud to become a resident. I think real life medicine's not quite as obviously as fun as Scrubs. I feel like we have a lot less time to shoot the breeze and crack jokes and zone off into nowhere. And although I do zone off, but probably not with as exciting imagination as JD from Scrubs.
Are there any janitors you have a particularly antagonistic relationship with?
There is one janitor, like...
Really?
No, I think it's kind of just like the...
Does he have no name?
Yeah, well, she's got no name. Does the janitor not have a name in Scrubs?
No. At one point he says he has a name tag that says Dr. Jan Itor on it.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, what do you know? Hey, that's like that movie Whitnell and I, where one of the characters is just, he doesn't have a name. It goes through the whole movie and there's only one of them, his name's Whitnell. So it's like that, I guess. Well, this janitor, she just gives me the evil eye every now and then, and I try and smile and be nice. I guess it is kind of like JD from Scrubs and that janitor, but there's been very little conversation. You know, I say sorry when I step in her wet floor and she gives me the evil eye, and that's about it. There's another one who's quite nice and we smile and say hello, but yeah.
So what's your working week look like?
We tend to start at 8 o'clock, us medicine types like JD. Unlike his mate Turk, who's a surgical type, they tend to start about 7 o'clock. They start a lot earlier, the surgeons, because they like to quickly whip through their ward rounds and get off to theatre and start cutting people up. You know, as a resident, I'm the bottom on the rung in the medical hierarchy. You know, you're not in specialty training really as a resident. And so your job is you start a day with a ward round, you go around and you basically make notes for the more senior doctors and then spend the rest of the day, following up, jobs like ordering scans and following up on test results, putting out spot fires that come up throughout the day. The nurses calling you and paging you with problems and queries from patients, and might go to a clinic, or if you're working on a surgical team, you go to theatre and help retract someone's skin while the surgeon, gets in there with a scalpel and does that sort of thing. So that's the life of a resident, and tend to work about 10 hours a day, I suppose, on average.
And so are you there like how many days a week?
Usually 5 days a week. Depending on what specialty you're in, you might be working weekends, and in a ward-based job like this, you don't have to work nights, which is very good. But I've done my fair share of emergency department where you're working all sorts of weird and wonderful times of day, and ward call, which is the night doctor, who's like the only doctor on call for any troubles in the hospital overnight. If anything happens, the nurses call that one doctor, and you'll do that shift overnight on your own. So I've done that. I'll be doing that again later this year.
Are you on call outside your normal working hours?
There's not often, not as a junior doctor. Certainly the consultants who sort of run the show, they'll be on call for a week or weeks at a time. They'll be on rosters with other consultants who work in the same specialty, and they'll maybe do a few weeks at a time where they're on call 24/7. But I am rarely on call at home. Occasionally, like once every few weeks, I'll have to be sober and make sure that if I get called, I'm ready to come in. But that's pretty much just for assisting with surgeries. If someone comes in the middle of the night and needs their appendix taken out, then I'll have to be within half an hour of the hospital and get in there quickly and help assist with that. Retract the skin or handle the camera when they do keyhole surgery, that sort of thing.
How are you with the Gore?
Gore, I don't mind the Gore at all. The problem with Gore is when it's attached to a living, breathing, feeling person with emotions and sensitivities. So if the person is knocked out in an operation, then it's a lot easier to deal with, because for example, every now and then a doctor does need to put a finger up someone's bottom. Do a digital rectal examination, DRE, which is nice to remember Dr. Dre when you're doing these sorts of things. Takes the edge off it. But if you're doing a digital rectal examination, I find it's a lot. It's a lot easier when the patient's knocked out. So if someone comes in the emergency department and unfortunately they've been having trouble with, who knows, constipation, bleeding from the back passage. Isn't this entertaining stuff? You probably can't get away without copping a feel and seeing what's going on at the back passage there. But if the patient, for example, needs a colonoscopy, where they put them to sleep and put a camera up their bottom in the, with the gastroenterologist or the surgeon doing that on an elective procedure. I've been there, and at the start of every one of those procedures, you do need to do a DRE, and it's not a thing. Like you don't even think twice about it really, because you don't have to consider the cultural sensitivities and the personal space of that patient because they're asleep. So obviously you're very respectful in the way that you do it. But when a patient is awake, they're obviously very anxious and they may be embarrassed, and you might be feeling some of those emotions as well, but it's your job to support them and reassure them. And so it can be challenging. And the gore itself is not really the problem, but it's just that gore tends to come hand in hand with, personal space and privacy and embarrassment. Usually bodily fluids tend to be associated with embarrassment for patients. So it's more about the interpersonal side that's associated with gore that can be a trouble. But the gore itself, get into it. It's not so bad.
And is that an attitude you've always had, or did you have to get used to it? Like before you went into medicine, like if how are you with roadkill or something?
I think I've got better at it, but like with roadkill, I just picked up a dead bird like 2 days ago. I did have a really close look to see how much of it was squished or not, but I didn't want it to get squished anymore. It didn't seem to be too squished. I picked it up off the side of the road and popped it in some bushes. But yeah, I think you still have those like instinctual responses, like that Lie to Me TV show where the guy who was in Pulp Fiction, who was like with Honey Bunny, and he's like, I'm gonna kill every one of you motherfuckers. That guy, Tim Roth, I think his name is. So he played that guy in the show Lie to Me, where he can detect micro expressions on people's faces, and I think that I see, even like every doctor, I see these little micro expressions of disgust when you're dealing with bodily fluids and certain conditions, skin conditions and things, infections that, just like human beings have these, natural responses. But you just become objective about it, and it really helps to understand the underlying biochemical, molecular, cell biology that underlies these processes, and you can really objectify it, and then you remember the role that you're playing with your patient to be their doctor and reassure them. So that aversion to gore sort of falls right down the list of priorities, and I'll find that sometimes it's quite handy when you've got that mask over your face though, because underneath you can be just like and you just learn to make sure that those eyebrows are stable.
Eyebrow discipline.
Yeah, eyebrow discipline, exactly.
Do you have a specialty in your medical field?
No, I don't have a specialty. It's a good question. I find that tends to be one of the first questions people ask when you're a doctor. Like, are you specialist? Are you going to specialize? No, I don't have a specialty. As a resident in the hospital, you essentially don't have a specialty. You move every 10 weeks into a different specialty and work with doctors who are specializing. You work with registrars and consultants who are specialised or specialising. The registrars are in training, essentially specialists in training. The consultants have become fully qualified specialists. So I have to move every 10 weeks. It sucks. It's like every 10 weeks it's a new job. Well, it's great for variety. That never gets stale, but can you imagine having to, I'm sure a lot of people do, you have to sort of change their workplace very frequently, but it's challenging. But I'm looking at the point now where I have to think about specialising, because not many people stay residents forever.
So do they force you to specialise at some point?
Nah, but it's a really strong push. I don't think many places will hire you as a resident forever, because once you've been a resident for 5 years or so, I can imagine your current employer saying, look, what are you doing with yourself? Are you actually a quality doctor? The type of person that we want, with who's striving to succeed for advanced medical excellence, and surely you'd have the skills now to take on more responsibility. And unfortunately, there's only one way to take on more responsibility, and that is to essentially specialize in a particular area of medicine. Even general practice is, these days, it's a specialty, really. General practice it still has a hierarchy with essentially a consultant at the top, and they'll have trainee registrars who work through that training program. Specialising is something that I do need to decide on, and I haven't quite decided that, but there's a big RMO campaign, resident medical officer campaign at the moment, where the Queensland Health recruits all the junior doctors, all the residents into jobs for next year, about 6 months in advance, and I have to decide I think I need to apply for a registrar job in a specialty training program now.
So based on the rotations you've done, are there any areas that you're starting to favour more than others?
Yeah, so I do really like infectious diseases as a specialty, and I also, which is what you'd call a medical specialty as opposed to a surgical specialty. And I also really like pathology, which is essentially the study of the underlying disease process in depth. So these days, with the advancements in medical science, pathology has become a specialty in itself, where people analyze blood tests, analyze surgical specimens, biopsies, cultures of microorganisms that are causing infections in their patients. These are specialties of medicine now where these people don't necessarily even have contact with patients very often, and their whole job is to use the underlying basic sciences and get an answer, find the diagnosis for their treating doctors.
So it's more like a research position.
It's almost, you're not doing research in the technical sense of discovering new knowledge through scientific method.
Oh, so you're going on, I guess it's you're researching specific cases.
Yeah,
and what's causing them.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is the closest medical specialty to basic science and research. It's probably as good a medical specialty for opportunities to do research as any other. But yeah, you're going into real detail using scientific methods of cell biology and biochemistry to tease out exactly what's going on that physiological scale, that microscopic scale often, to work out what the actual disease process is for patients. So often patients, you can come up with a clinical diagnosis, which means just based off taking a history, asking patient questions about what's going on and examining them, doing the physical, and you can come up with a diagnosis just like that. Like broken ribs, for example, apparently it's a clinical diagnosis. You can't rely on an x-ray for a broken rib. You just got to decide based on poking and, it hurts there. Oh, there you go, broken rib. That's medicine for you. But pathology and radiology is another medical specialty where they look at the scans. These are these specialties where you really have to go in depth with the tools that we've developed over the last couple of 100 years.
What is it about pathology and infectious diseases that you're really interested in?
It's really the underlying science of it. Because I wanted to be a scientific researcher. I went into uni. I did a Bachelor of Science and I did an honours project in biochemistry. I love molecular cell biology. That is the underlying. The body's made of millions or billions of cells, trillions. I can't remember, but each of these cells they're so small, but they practically have the complexity within them that an entire human body has anyway. Within a cell, you have organelles, just like within a human body, you have organs. And so the subcellular mechanics and the subcellular physiology is just amazing. And like you have to you have to study cell biology which is a requirement for understanding pathology or infectious diseases, which are caused by microorganisms, single-celled bacteria and such. Like, to understand that biology, you need to understand biochemistry, and you need to have an appreciate. Like, you have to see that, you know, these atoms combine to make these molecules and make this protein or this enzyme, make DNA. This is how DNA mutates. This is how certain genetic diseases are caused, because there's a mutation in this genetic, you know, AGT or A base pair, which is causing this protein to be malformed in this way. And you can see how, you know, bacteria change rapidly and use these mechanisms to cause disease. It's absolutely fascinating. I might sound really nerdy, but I love it. Yeah.
This is interesting because, as you said, you did a science degree. Do you have to do a science degree before you do medicine?
It depends on which medical school, because in Queensland I think you have to do, maybe they're changing it now, but you have to do an undergraduate degree to do medicine. And so most people that I work with have done a pre-med Bachelor of Science, done the 3 years of a Bachelor of Science, and they've mostly done anatomy and physiology. But you can do like music or arts, you could do whatever you want and then go into med school. Whereas down south, they had those 6-year medical degrees where you go straight in from high school.
Because I remember, as you said, like, you weren't originally planning on going into medicine, and you did this really long, what seemed to me like a really long degree in science, and then you were trying to get lab work for quite a while, weren't you?
Yeah. Because I wanted to be a scientific researcher, and I actually wanted to do nanotechnology to begin with, and then by studying nanotechnology, I discovered molecular cell biology, and all that time through those 3 years of undergrad science, I was wanting to be a laboratory scientist, essentially, and then even did a year of like a lab research. I did an honours year, which is the standard thing for anybody who wants to be a scientist in Australia. You need to do an honours year, tack it on to the end of your 3 years of undergraduate coursework. And then, I did apply for medical school, but, I got accepted, but I deferred that, and I still toyed around with the ideas of doing lab research. I even then eventually went into medical school for a year, and then I thought, stuff this is ridiculous. Like, who would ever want to be a doctor? What an idiot. So I dropped out of medical school and spent another year pondering and looking into doing like lab research again. But I didn't really get anywhere with that. It wasn't really clicking, and I realised that being a doctor was the way to go. And I re-enrolled in medical school, and here I am.
Was that kind of I remember that being a bit of a hard time for you towards the end of your degree. You kind of, like there weren't enough positions in lab work, or you were applying for them and not getting them, and you didn't know what you were going to do next.
Yeah, I definitely did apply for a lot of research assistant positions. So you can go straight from your Bachelor of Science to honours to PhD with it, like being a student that whole way through. But a lot of lab scientists, like medical researchers and other areas of science, like physics or whatever, they'll do a research assistant job after they've done their undergraduate degree. And it's a decent job. I think you get a pretty decent average Australian wage, and do full time, and you sort of just assist other researchers with their experiments, I guess. It's fantastic because you're straight into it. Like, you're actually just doing the science, and you're not having to waste all this time on bloody, theses and grant proposals and all that crap. You can just do the actual grunt work, which is what's really fun, I think. Working with test tubes and experiments, but that work is hard to come by. There's a lot of competition for that work, and you can't do that forever anyway. Like, most of these people want to eventually do a PhD especially once they realize what they would like to do a PhD on. But no, I didn't get very far applying for that sort of work. Probably didn't have the highest class honours, from my honours degree, which is partly because towards the end of my honours degree, I had lost a bit of inspiration there, because seeing how really the problem was not the science itself. It's amazing. It's fantastic stuff what they're doing, and the real problem is the environment the scientists have to work in, with lack of funding. That they're so stressed out. Just that year of doing an honours project and working with scientists who day in day out, they're working really hard. They're working long hours than the average person, and often with little reward, and not knowing whether they're going to have a job next year, next grant cycle. And it's so competitive. There's other people on the other side of the world maybe doing very similar research, and maybe they'll get to they'll pip them at the post, and all that work they've done will essentially be for nothing. They can't get their name on a paper. They won't get any recognition for what they've done. Yeah, it's there's not very good job security, and the money in science isn't amazing either. So you can see why a lot of scientific researchers they do struggle a bit. So that was getting me down a bit, and obviously medicine's got relatively good job security. Everyone needs a doctor just like they need a mechanic.
So that was the thing that really appealed to you, the security?
It wasn't the thing. It definitely played a role. The other thing, probably the main thing that appealed to me was the actual patient contact. You get to see new people every day. I guess like any customer service job, a lot of people are attracted to customer service or jobs where they get to meet new people every day, and see the people they're helping. Unlike as a researcher, you don't see the people that you're helping. And then one of the other things is that in medicine, you get those immediate rewards, and that fulfillment from patient after patient. You see the results. People come in, they're ill, come to hospital, they're ill, come to the general practice, they're ill, and you'll be able to actually treat them and see them get better, and you'll see essentially they'll be happier for it. They're suffering, and they're not suffering as much before. So that's obviously fulfilling to see that. Whereas as a scientist, you can go months and months without seeing a result.
So you're enjoying being a doctor?
Yeah, definitely enjoying being a doctor. I don't enjoy the long hours, and it's very stressful at times. But it's getting better for doctors the last few decades. The hours are certainly better here now than they were before, and better than most other parts of the Western world. So it's good. But yeah, I do miss research. I would love to be a scientist. I would love to be able to call myself a scientist, and one day move more into that. And if I do something like pathology as a specialty, there's a really good opportunity for that.
Do you want more tea?
Yeah, I might take a piss of that.
Do you know how you wash ponchos? It needs a wash at some point. I don't think you can just chuck it in the machine. I think it gets shredded.
Maybe if you have a hand wash setting or delicates. Is it wool? No, it's not wool, is it?
I'm not sure.
I find that if it doesn't survive the washing machine, it's not meant to be. It's survival of the fittest. It's Darwinian clothing evolution. That's how your wardrobe evolves over time, is whether or not things survive the washing machine. You're a bit of a poncho man, though.
I love my ponchos.
Is this the same one that you used to wear at Splendor?
Yeah. I used to take two to Splendor.
Really?
There's the green one's on my bed, at the foot of my bed, and there's that one I wear around the house, which at my old place, I used it as a blackout curtain, because the sun would come in the bedroom window every morning, and it was really bright. But now I get to wear it around the house again. But yeah, I probably haven't washed it in 5 years.
It's a good blackout curtain, black on one side, but just smelling it now. It smells pretty good for one that you've never washed, so just keep doing what you're doing. You'll be fine.
It's so warm as well. When you've got it around you, it just creates this tent of warmth, much more than you would think.
Yeah, that was pretty classic, you being in the poncho. Would you still wear a poncho if you went to a festival?
Yeah, if it was in winter. I've been to Woodford a few times since then, but that happens in summer, so you don't really need warm stuff. I remember because I'd wear 2 ponchos and a jacket, and during the day when it was hot, just down in Byron Bay in end of July, I think Splendor happens, during the day I'd tie them around my waist, so I didn't overheat. And then at night, I'd put them on underneath my jacket, I think, which is gets it warmest. And then I'd take two because one time we were waiting in line for a bus and we were standing with some girls and they were cold and I had ponchos to give them.
Yeah, that's the way. It's like a cigarette lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to wrap a sleeping bag underneath my jacket if I got cold enough.
A sleeping bag, wow.
Well, you go somewhere that you need a sleeping bag and you get cold enough, you just sort of like roll it up into it works. It's good. But a poncho I've never had. Maybe I should be getting on the poncho train.
They're really nice for winter.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about exercise because speaking of Splendor, you had a pretty bad knee injury that happened at Splendor. And I want to know, how's your knee?
My knee is shithouse. It's doing all right, but it's been pretty shithouse because I had surgery on it again only in July last year. So I've had 2 knee reconstructions of the same knee. Trying to slowly do my physio. It's been over 12 months with a knee reconstruction. That's snapping the ACL ligament, the anterior cruciate ligament. That's the season-ending football injury or netball, or usually netball and football. They're probably pretty common ones to get those injuries. It's usually like 9 to 12 months, they would say. It's for a pro athlete. So someone who's just a lay person who doesn't have, it's not their full-time paid job to recover. It's pretty hard. It drags out. When I had the first knee reco, I was pretty fit.
Do you want to tell the whole story of your knee? It's a bit of a saga.
The whole story. I'm trying to remember how the first time I did it.
Was it first while playing soccer or at Splendor?
It was playing soccer. So I was playing soccer down at Davies Park. Awesome spot to play soccer down in West End on a Sunday afternoon with randoms. Just people rock up from around the community, and we were playing every week down there, and it was really, really good. But yeah, just not even got tackled, but just sort of ran really fast down the wing and then changed direction and put too much strain on the leg sort of snapped backwards, and there was this loud pop, and it was a clunk, and it was like the most exquisite agonizing pain I have ever and will ever experience, because I can't imagine it being more than that. And I mean, patients tell me, I ask them, how much pain are you in right now? And they say 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10? You are joking me. And you can't say that, but I've got to the point where I've gotten a bit more confident and have a few lines up my sleeve to try and push them, because 10 out of 10 is like, and I say this, 10 out of 10 is like, I break your arm and start twisting. That's 10 out of 10 pain. And she's like, yeah, it's 10 out of 10. And she's just lying on the bed there, not whimpering. Oh, I hide it really well. It's like, I don't think so. But anyway, I've experienced 10 out of 10 pain. And that was really bad. And I got up straight away and tried to kick the ball again, and it just did exactly the same thing. And, 2 exquisite pains in 5 minutes. And yeah, eventually saw a doctor, knee reconstruction needed. So that was pretty devo, because I was playing soccer every week, not competitively. And never really have since then, because it's hard to get back into, you lose your, I used to go, like I said, it was a community thing down there at Davies Park, but I used to go down there with friends, and I sort of stopped hanging out with those friends as much. And then 8 years later, I just do the same bloody thing, filling in for a friend's indoor soccer team. You got to keep it up. You got to keep running, keep physio, keep those muscles strong. But I just sort of rocked up and did the same thing. But what happened in between was that first time I did it, I had to wait 12 months for an operation on a public health system. And I must have buckled the knee like a dozen times waiting. And every time, that 10 out of 10 pain, the knee basically just goes backwards because the ligament's gone. And one of the worst was at Splendor in the Grass. I think you were there? Were you there with me?
I wasn't with you because you were in the mosh pit at Spiderbait, I believe.
Damn, that was so good. I don't know what you were doing. I don't know if you were seeing Arctic Monkeys or something.
I was seeing another band at the time.
You've probably already seen Spiderbait.
Probably.
They've been around. That was awesome. They've got 3 or 4 tracks that just get me going every time. And I was in the mosh pit. I think I'd only ever been in a mosh pit once before, And I don't know if I really realized how dangerous. Actually, it wasn't even that dangerous. The fact is, I had a knee that was like missing like the most important ligament, and yeah, it just buckled the wrong way, and I went down, and I had alcohol on board, which probably helped, but I was like, holy shit, how am I going to get out of here? Like, I've got to get out, and this is a massive crowd, like at Splendor, so I realized there's a really good strategy to get out of a crowd. It's very hard to get in and out of a crowd at a music festival. You got to have your strategies and which part of where do you enter. But I realize a good strategy is put your hand on your head, look really sick, and then just sort of like your other hand is just sort of like
reaching
out and sort of dragging on people's shoulders, and they'll think, oh my God, this guy is like really sick, or he's really wasted, or what, I don't want to touch him, some combination of that, and they will just get out of your way. And I was out of there in about 15 seconds. I'm not even exaggerating. It was that quick. But so I think, people at the right moment, they will look out for someone who's sick, but I've used that strategy since then, when I didn't have a bung leg, and it worked very well.
So you've had a few reconstructions now. Is it going to get better?
Well, is it going to get better? It can still get a little bit better from where it is now. I think I'm almost 12 months down the line from the operation. I think 13 or 14 months is about the time frame for the ligament to reach full strength. And this ligament is actually so the ligament that's snapped is about 2 inches long, maybe. It's quite thick, I don't know, a centimetre thick or so. And when that snaps, it doesn't grow back. It's gone. It's obliterated. See it on an MRI, it's just like snow. There's just crap everywhere. So to get this ligament back, you have to use a graft, and they will take a long strip of hamstring from the same leg or the other leg, and fold it over a few times, just like a sliver of hamstring that doesn't have too much effect on the hamstring.
Does the hamstring grow back where they take it from?
Yeah, it does. It does grow back. It's never quite the same. So people might only reach like 95% of the top speed that they used to be able to reach, because hamstring's very important for sprinting. But it's great. So this hamstring, they use it as a scaffold, and so they'll fold it over a few times and screw it in to the knee. One screw on the top, one screw on the bottom, and it provides a scaffold for little cells to migrate from either side along this scaffold and populate it. But the actual graft dies and just provides a scaffold. So there's about 6 weeks after the operation is the most dangerous time, because the graft has essentially died at that point, and is not providing any strength. But it's too early for these new cells to have migrated in and regrown a new ligament. But now I'm about almost 12 months down the line, and within the next couple of months that new ligament will be at full strength, fully regrown. But it's never quite as strong as the original. So I've always got to take it easy, be very careful, and make sure if I do something like play indoor soccer that I've really trained up for it.
What's the prognosis? What does that mean for your lifestyle?
It means avoiding spider bait mosh pits. Probably.
That's probably not a difficult thing, but like, is it stopping you from doing...
Are they still kicking around? Like, is that why?
Yeah, they toured in April.
Oh, well, I probably...
It was the 20th anniversary of Ivy and the Big Apples.
To be honest, I probably would join in the mosh pit again. Because I don't know what's good for me, but...
Has a medicine degree taught you nothing?
No, it's taught me that patients, do stupid things all the time, so why can't I be different, People take... They know what the problems are, and they make their own. Essentially, it's a rational decision, informed decision making. Even if it's the wrong decision, it's still a reasonably rational one. Otherwise, it's
an informed decision. Like, you know the risks.
Yeah. Otherwise, if it wasn't an informed decision, it would be. I'd be basically non-compos mentis, and you'd have to get a substitute decision maker or something like that. But I think I'd still get in there, but I'd have to be really careful. In the long term, I might have trouble with arthritis. Like when you damage these ligaments, you often damage the cartilage that lines the knee joint as well, and I've done that. And I actually had to get that cartilage stitched up during the last knee reconstruction. And if the cartilage isn't working so well, that'll eventually wear away and you'll have bone on bone, and we'll be looking at a knee replacement down the line. So important to remember, knee reconstruction, not as bad as a knee replacement.
Does your physio give you exercises to...
Yeah. I've got I've got a lot of exercises that I've been given, not necessarily ones that I do, because it's hard to find time. It's ironic how, plumber's tap is always leaky, and just like with doctors, we don't take very good care of ourselves. Part of it's because we have long hours, and it's hard to take like half an hour every day to do some physio.
For many years, finding time for exercise was a big thing for me, but I think I've managed to lock it down in the last few years by doing it in the morning.
So what are you doing?
I do mostly stretches, some light weights, and some cardio on the exercise bike downstairs.
Oh, so I was going to ask you. You showed me that just before. I was like, hey, actually getting
I do
on
use it. Yeah,
on
yeah.
the bike. Nice.
It was good. I got it for free off Gumtree a few months ago because my physio recommended cycling for me.
Oh, I love cycling. I wish I had an exercise bike, but it's very, very good for knee reconstructions actually. But I've been really slack with that. Every time my bike tube goes flat, it's just going to be months before I get around to replacing it, and then I'll get into the swing again until I get the next flat tire.
Yeah. My physio gave me a few exercises to do because I was doing some things like push-ups and sit-ups and heavier weights that she was like, oh no, that's doing you damage. You can't do that.
So you're not allowed to do push-ups?
Oh, so I haven't seen you in a while. Do you remember last year I caught up with you and Steve? We went down to West End to Rumpus Room.
Mm.
We went back to Steve's and I was showing you something because the two of you are both doctors. And I was showing you, I don't know, do you remember? I was showing you my leg that I was having trouble lifting my right leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll show you again. So I'll stand up, hang on. So I've just demonstrated to Jesse I can't lift my foot above a very high angle, and I can't hold my whole leg back very high compared to the left one. So I showed that to you guys last year, asking for your medical opinion as young doctors. You didn't really have much of an idea, which is fair enough as it turns out. I'd first noticed this within the last 2 or 3 years, I think, as I was doing my morning exercises, actually, because one of the things I did was running on the spot. Living in an apartment, not a lot of room to exercise, so I would just go in the bathroom and do some jogging on the spot as part of my cardio before jumping in the shower.
Yeah, I've been running up and down the hallway recently for my physio.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Actually, I've been wondering, though, how quickly the carpet's going to wear out, because I figure it's like having like hundreds of people walking through your house every day.
You'll notice it probably starts getting thinner in the center and thicker towards the edge where you want to step.
Yeah.
I'd first noticed that when I looked down, my right leg was kind of falling funny, like it wasn't going just straight up and down like the left one was. So I noticed that for a while, asked you guys. Eventually, just like the next time I was at the GP, I think I had a sore throat or something, and I mentioned it to him. And he was like, oh yeah, that's weird. Maybe go to a physio, see what they make of it. So I went to a physiotherapist. She was very interested in it. And she got me to do a few tests, like just walking around. And she was like, that's really whack. Just the way I walk around. Like my whole, she identified that I had foot drop in my right foot, which is where, like, have you come across foot drop?
Yeah, definitely. My nana had foot drop.
So it's a thing where you pretty much your gait is due to a weakness in the foot, your heel in the foot doesn't strike the ground first like you normally should when you walk. So I was kind of throwing my foot either to the side or like really high up and then sort of lunging out.
Yeah, these are some of the gaits that we're taught to recognize in medical school.
Yeah. And so foot drop, it's not a condition on its own, it's a symptom, and it can be a symptom of any number of things. Like I think MS is one of the things. So I don't have MS.
Sweet.
And the physio also took notice of my upper back as well, because I have quite protruding shoulder blades, and also that I can't lift my arms above my head.
Well, yeah, you can lift your hands above your head, but it's hard to get that, like those elbows very high above the shoulders.
Yeah, so I can lift it from the elbow is fine, but from my shoulders, I can't lift my arms above my head.
Which may have been why when we were in cricket practice in grade 8 in PE class, you weren't the best bowler.
Oh, I don't remember that, but probably. And like, yeah, and as far back as I can remember, I've never been able to raise my arms above my head. I just didn't really think much of it. Like, people's bodies are just weird.
Well, this is
or
the thing.
whatever.
Like, it seems to not really matter. Basically, you know, certainly you don't have to play guitars above your head unless you're one of those types
Unless
of
you're
rock
Jimi
stars.
Hendrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're clapping at concerts, I sometimes feel a bit weird. Like, at the end, if people are giving a standing ovation with their arms applauding above their head.
Or the old, you know, like at the end of 8 Mile where he's got the whole crowd, you know, doing the hand waving thing all together. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. So the physio observed me. She was like, "Oh," she said repeatedly, "You present the strangest conditions I've ever seen in my job here." She was pretty young, but and she called over the director of the physio center and to have a look, and they were both very interested, but they didn't know what the issue was. And at this stage, I was like, "Okay, well, yeah, my arms have always done that. Like, it's not. I'm just here for my foot or whatever." So there were a number of things they thought it could be. It could be like a pinched nerve, some sort of nerve damage, maybe an old injury or something. But they really didn't know. So they advised I go back to the GP and get sent for an MRI on my lower back, because there was a chance it could be like a pinched nerve in my spine, which might be affecting my leg function. So being a young man, it took me months to take care of myself and go back to the GP, by which time the original GP he actually retired. And
Well done. Well, he was the guy who just sent you off to physio anyway.
Yeah, so he didn't have much of a clue. So he retired, went back, saw another GP, and she gave me a referral to get an MRI. Went and got the MRI done. No problems there, so it wasn't a back nerve thing. Went back to the GP. She said, "I don't know what it is. I'd recommend you see a neurologist. That would be the next step." Neurologists are very busy. It took a while to get an appointment there. But last December, I got into a place in the city and saw her. It was actually in the same building I used to go to the dentist when I was little, up on the top of the hill.
So that was,
near the old,
comforting?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. They have very old elevators in that building with big black push buttons.
I love old elevators.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get up the Brisbane City Hall, up to the top there for a number of years. It's very hard now. You have to book like 3 hours in advance, and you have to be there in person to do it 3 hours in advance. So it's hard to get up there. But they got a great old lift. That's the problem why you have to book 3 hours in advance now. They can't fit that many people up there. But I highly recommend head up there, especially around midday when it's going to chime. It'll blow your eardrums, but it's a good experience.
So I went to the neurologist, and she was also very interested in my upper arms and shoulders, as well as the leg. And I couldn't really understand why people kept getting back to this. And so I described the symptoms, and she kind of reminded me a bit of Dr. House in her manner, that she was very blunt and asked a lot of rapid fire questions without saying what she was getting at. And she was like poking at me and, touching my arms and legs and
accuse you of cheating on your wife.
Yeah. But she was really good. I really liked her, and she was very matter of fact. I think she could be interpreted as being a bit rude, but I kind of appreciated her manner. And she did a few muscle tests as well. Like, she put some electrodes on and did that thing where they put pins in you and they get you to move, and the machine kind of makes a brrr noise, and to see how what your muscle functions like. And yeah, she was asking me all these really seemingly unrelated things, like, could I close my eyes all the way? Could I whistle? Really random things, but there were things that actually did matter. Like, as a matter of fact, when I go to sleep, my eyes don't close all the way. And my ex-girlfriend noticed that, for example. I've never been able to whistle as well, but lots of people can't.
I can't whistle.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she was testing all of your nerves, including the cranial nerves, which supply the face. So we do some pretty funny tests. We'll ask people, just simple ones like shine the torch in the eyes and follow my finger. But then we'll do things like shut your eyes as tight as you can and don't let me open them. And I'll try as the doctor to pull someone's eyes, eyelids open.
Yeah.
And then my favorite is puff out your cheeks and don't let me pop them.
Yep.
And so you try and pop them on either side with a finger on either side. And then the next question is, now show me a big smile, which is usually pretty easy because the person has just done something as silly as puff out their cheeks. So they usually give a good smile anyway.
She did that as well. And I've never been able to, I don't smile with my teeth because it looks hideous when I do it because
Me too.
I'm just not able to give a good smile. And so she was asking me all these random things, and she had an idea of what I might have, but she asked me to go and take a bit of a family history and see if anyone else in my family had similar things. And she went off and did a bit of research on her own. And she said, "Yeah, come back in a few weeks," which is pretty soon for a neurologist. She wanted to see me pretty quickly. So I went away, did some research, found out that my grandmother, who just passed away last year, also could not raise her arms above her head and had foot drop, at least in her later life. So I went back to the neurologist in January, and this was 3 or 4 days after my girlfriend and I broke up, actually. So I went back to her, gave her the family history. She'd done some more research, and so she gave me a clinical diagnosis of muscular dystrophy.
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
No.
Well, I mean, knowing you for all these years, that's what I mean. But, having that complex of neurological symptoms, I guess it's always there on the differential diagnosis.
Yeah. So I have facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, or FSHD, as it's normally abbreviated to. It is a genetic condition, as all muscular dystrophy is, I believe. It's a degenerative skeletal muscle condition, which tends to affect mostly the legs, the abdomen, and kind of the upper arm, shoulder region, as well as the face muscles sometimes. And basically it's caused, and like maybe you can correct me on some of the science of this, but it's caused by the DUX4 protein. Have you heard of that?
The DUX4 protein?
Yeah, DUX4.
I'm afraid not.
Okay, well, it's a protein that it's not supposed to be in your skeletal muscles, but due to a mutation, it can get in there. And if it does, it's toxic to muscle tissue. And so it dystrophies, is that a verb?
Yeah, why not?
It dystrophies the muscles slowly over your entire life, which is what it's doing to me.
Gee, so is this, how quickly is this one progressing? Because you said it's a couple of years since you've noticed some troubles with the legs, but they could have been there for ages.
Yeah, I think the leg thing is recently because I moved out of my dad's place 4 years ago now, I think, and it's an upstairs-downstairs thing, and my bedroom was downstairs. And I remember I would always take the stairs 2 at a time to go upstairs. And I noticed more recently going there, I can't do that anymore because I can't lift my right leg up that high to do that.
Right.
So I think the leg thing is more recently and it's deteriorating a bit more. But that, like, as we said before, I've never been able to lift my arms above my head. And FSHD most often becomes evident in the teens and 20s and has these sorts of symptoms. So when the neurologist was asking me all those questions, she showed me a list of the 11 most common symptoms of FSHD, and I displayed 9 of them.
That's a clinical diagnosis. There you go.
And there were so many things that I just thought were weird little body oddities about me, not whistling with the eye thing, smiling, the arms, the leg. They're all connected to this by a body-wide deterioration of the muscles.
Can you show me this smile thing?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, I just figured that was you, I mean, that's pretty normal. I wouldn't have said that was that abnormal. Yeah.
Because, like, I can't pull my lips back to really reveal my teeth, so it just looks kind of gross. Your audience be glad you can't see it. It's pretty nasty. Yeah, so I found that out in January, and I've been seeing the physio since then, and she's given me some exercises to do and changed some of the ones I was doing because I can't do too strenuous lifting anymore because at some point, because when I lift, the muscles in my shoulders just aren't there that are supposed to be, so it's putting extra pressure on like this whole region up here.
Other muscles that don't need to be put under too much or shouldn't be put under too much strain.
And yeah, at this point, like if I exercise those to deterioration, like those muscles aren't coming back. So I kind of got to just do gentle kind of stuff.
And are you finding the physios being helpful?
Yeah, she's very helpful.
Oh, I mean the exercises.
Yeah, I guess I'm not getting any stronger, but the idea is really to just slow the rate of muscle decay.
Yeah, yeah,
At
yeah.
this
Maintain
stage.
status quo.
Yeah, and I've started using a leg band on my right foot when I walk, which helps a lot with my gait. So it's like an elastic thing that attaches to my ankle and my shoe and keeps my foot like on the right angle, so my heel can strike the ground.
And is this just when you're out and about?
Yeah, so I don't
it's
wear
hidden.
it at home. Yeah.
Oh, so it's like hidden under the. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it's hidden under most of the pant. You can see the black elastic that points out, and the hooks go into like the little holes where your shoelaces go.
It's amazing what they come up with, and of course, massive benefit would be just the general fitness benefits of regular exercise. Anyway,
Yes, actually, I've really found I'm feeling a lot brighter and a bit more energetic since I've been cycling every day. Like some days, if I'm really, really busy or if I'm really hungover, I may not get to all the weights and stretches, but I make sure to always get to the cycling because that doesn't take very long.
Well done. Yeah, and it's great. Hey, the endorphins obviously are good for the mind, and I just reckon that exercise. I think it even just strengthens that ability to see out a day. Not get tired and fatigued.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether you're working hard or on like a day off. As we get older, we just start to, really feel like a nap, or the mind fatigues a little bit as the day goes on. And I think that regular exercise, definitely helps. Just getting through the day and keeping that mind sharp.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like I can really feel my leg and foot deteriorating more quickly. Like even since I've had the leg bands, since I've been using that, which has only been a few months, like when I take it off and don't use it now, like my foot drags and I trip over stuff. And I was trying to drive without it the other week, and it was really difficult to keep my foot on the accelerator like that without the band to kind of keep me up. And like I have to rest my whole leg against the door whenever I'm driving. I just can't keep it upright for that long. So yeah, that's kind of made me reprioritize some stuff. Like if obviously I did a lot of research when I was diagnosed about outcomes and stuff. About 20% of people with FSHD need a wheelchair after they're age 50. And a lot of people tend to have very pronounced drooping in their faces as they get older, and like the words come out quite slurred. And if I want to do some travel or anything active, like I need to do it within the next few years because I'm not sure how quickly, it's going to keep deteriorating. Really.
So you said did you say your grandma had some troubles?
It looks like it. That she also couldn't raise her arms above her head and had foot drop.
She just died last year.
Yeah, she lived to well into her 90s. So like it's not a death sentence, but it just is probably going to affect my quality of life more and more as I get older. So I guess the two things I'd mostly be worried about is that in some people it affects their diaphragm muscle, which can lead to some really bad respiratory problems, which is pretty much the only circumstances in which it can shorten your lifespan. My neurologist had me go and get my heart and lungs tested. I'm going back to see her in July to get the results on that, to see how they're going, and kind of sort of to establish a baseline as well. So where I'm at now, and then in the future, go back, get them tested to see if they're still okay.
Well, doing all that exercise is going to be, really good for the diaphragm as well, of course.
Yeah,
and you can
hopefully.
do those exercises. People actually things like yoga and that, and they're very focused on the breathing using the diaphragm.
Yeah, I went to a yoga class late last year actually, and I found it quite difficult because a lot of it is very core centered, and my core is very weak. Another of the symptoms I have is lordosis, the curvature of the spine. So yeah, it always looks like my tummy's sticking out and my butt's sticking out because my ab muscles just don't work to keep them straight when I'm upright.
But yeah, like with the diaphragm, it's something that people don't appreciate as much, I think. What we'd call the accessory muscles of respiration, the intercostal muscles, which means the muscles between the ribs, and the the muscles above the rib cage as well that connect to your neck. These muscles are called accessory muscles because they're not the primary muscles for breathing. So at rest, it's really the diaphragm that's doing the work. And so when we're examining someone who's in respiratory distress, one of the key findings is seeing that they're using those accessory muscles, like you'll see drawing in between the ribs and the neck muscles working hard. So if those muscles are taking it easy, then it's the diaphragm most of the time.
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to have to think about is my career as well, because in the job I'm in now, I lift stacks of books for most of my day. And whenever I do that, that's putting more stress on shoulder muscles that aren't there anymore. So it's likely I'm not going to be able to do my job forever where I'm at. So I'm probably going to think of a new career.
Were you planning on doing that one forever?
No, but I'm probably going to have to think of a change sooner rather than later.
It's tough coming up with, thinking about careers and all that, of course. But you've got broad interests.
Yeah, but not many skills, I guess.
Well, you did essentially the librarianship course at uni. You did the...
I have a diploma in library services.
Yeah.
But I took the job I'm at now, which is at a wholesaler, because there weren't any library jobs I could get. And the other thing is, I guess, children. Like, I wasn't really planning on having children, but I wasn't 100% against it. But also because FSHD is genetic, and like if I were to have children, there'd be a pretty even 50% chance of any kids having it. Well, you got engaged recently, very recently. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Getting married pretty soon.
Very soon.
Where does children come into your thinking at this stage of your life?
Well, yeah, I've always known I wanted to procreate. I say procreate because I was stuck on whether to say have kid or kids. But yeah, plural is not defined yet. But I've always wanted to have at least one kid. And so does my fiancée, Liz. So that's never been an issue. And then when to have kids. So I was amazed at some of our mutual friends or people that we know having kids when they were so young, and you see people do it all the time. And some of them you think, no worries. But others you think, gee, how's that kid going to go? How's that parent going to go? They might not seem to be in the ideal time of their life. They might not have everything sorted. They might, you might think that they would benefit from more life experience before having the maturity to raise a child. All this stuff. God, when I was conceived, my parents had people saying, "What have you got to offer a child? You guys like, job security is not great. Don't have like the best prospects or whatever," and silly things like that. Obviously, a good kid can come out of any situation. But I have reached a point more recently where I think that maybe I do feel ready. Like I've been super tentative, not thinking that I had the skills to raise a kid, to have a baby. But I think that in the next year or two, couple of years, I think I've been saying that for the last few years.
I think you'd be a wonderful father.
Well, thank you very much.
I think especially lately, and since you met Liz, I think you've really become a lot more focused as a person and really kind of knuckled down. And
yeah, well, Liz definitely helps. And that's probably I don't think I would be anywhere near I am today if it weren't for her, because when you've got like someone to support you, not just like your family do, but like almost basically every day, I see her. I've been living with her for a few years, and even before that would see her so frequently, and just, I think also it's just that fulfillment of having a partner helps you. If that's always been so important to you, like it helps me have like one less thing to, worry about, because so I can focus a bit more on like achieving, other goals in life, I suppose. But yeah, so maybe but honestly, I don't feel like I've been more focused and settled the last few years, if that's how you've interpreted things.
I think you just seem like a more responsible person in general. Like, not that you were ever, wildly irresponsible, but...
Like what?
I don't know, you Well, like we were saying before, you were struggling there for a while, kind of figuring out what you want to do. And
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. I guess I re-enrolled in medical school and met Liz like 4 months later. So who knows if I didn't meet her, who knows, I might have quit again. But no, I've been pretty well motivated to stay out the course with that and be a doctor. But yeah, no, it's been good. Liz is very inspiring. She's super duper. I don't know if ambitious is the right term, but she's very motivated. She's inspired. She has things that she wants to do and goals, and it rubs off on me. Like I look up to her, so it helps to have someone like that in your life.
Did you have a prepared topic that you wanted to talk about as well?
Not really, but
that's all right. We are probably running a bit long. That's all right.
No, I mean, you can edit whatever you want, bro. I am happy to have a chat about all sorts of things. In terms of my hobbies and things that I spend a lot of time thinking about, I do spend a lot of time thinking about, the state of the world and politics and that, but I also spend a lot of time thinking about my football team, the Essendon Bombers, and certain sorts of TV shows. And, I love anything to do with science and, scientific advancement and science fiction. Star Trek is something that we talked about before as well. I mean, I could go on for like hours about Star Trek or my football team or politics,
We'll have to do another episode sometime. Well, I think that this is kind of good because I do want to have return guests, like people that the audience kind of gets to know over the course of the podcast. So I think it's good we've had like this introductory one. I feel like we have a real base of where you come from.
Yeah.
So maybe next time we can talk all about Star Trek and Essendon.
Yeah, for sure. There'll be plenty to talk about. The new Star Trek series coming out soon.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wait, is this set in the new Abrams universe or the old one?
No, it's set in the... it's actually... I guess it's really both, but because it's set before both.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that they realized that the Abrams universe, it's like a branch in time off a common denominator timeline.
An event, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this new series is set before the branching.
Oh, I see. Okay, I get it. Okay, well, we'll talk about all that later. Jesse, thanks so much for coming on my podcast.
Thank you.
So there you go. That's my friend, Dr. Jesse Collyer. It's still funny calling him a doctor. He was such a scallywag when he was younger. And I hope that's given you a bit of insight into my state of mind this year. Obviously, being diagnosed with something like muscular dystrophy is scary, but it's also kind of lit a bit of a fire under my ass to get out and do stuff. It's kind of like when you're playing Super Mario Brothers and the timer's going down and then the music starts speeding up and you have to rush to get to the end of the level before it's game over. And I feel a bit that way now, that because I don't know how quickly the disease is going to progress. There are people with FSHD who are much younger than I am now who already have it a lot worse. And in others, it never turns into anything more than an annoyance into old age. The thing is, I just don't know. So I feel like I have to start all these projects that I want to do and get these things out there. Things like this podcast. Either way, I'm going to have a lot of time when I'm older to sit around and watch movies and play video games, but I may not always be able to do other things that are more active. So in that way, it's really been quite a positive motivating force. If you're interested in FSHD, you can find more information online. There's a really good resource I've found is the FSH Society. You can find them at fshsociety.org. They're an American group with some really good information. You can ask me if you want. You can send me an email if you're curious. gimmeempathypodcast@gmail.com. So I'm putting this one up on World FSHD Day, which is June 20th. It's designed to raise awareness of FSHD and I guess muscular dystrophy in general. I know I never knew anyone with muscular dystrophy, and I didn't really know what it was until I found out I had it. So it's been an interesting learning experience. Corrections Corner time. Detective John Munch, played by Richard Belzer, was not on NYPD Blue or The Simpsons, but he was on Homicide, Life on the Street, Law and Order, The X-Files, Arrested Development, and 30 Rock, as well as Law and Order SVU, Law and Order Trial by Jury, The Beat, and The Wire, among many other shows. The British band Dan Aykroyd broke up in 2011. In the Season 8 finale of Scrubs, the janitor revealed to JD that his real name was Glenn Matthews, although he then responded to someone calling him by a different name, which implied that he was lying to JD. But it was later confirmed in a video blog by the series creator Bill Lawrence that Glenn Matthews was indeed the janitor's real name. I may have gotten some stuff about the genetic mechanism of the DUX4 protein wrong. So if you're super curious about the genetics of it, feel free to look up FSHD online. I'm still learning about it myself. Oh, I said at one point that I was mainly worried about two things with regards to the condition. The one that we talked about was diaphragm weakness. The second I forgot to get back to. But the second one, I guess, that I would really be afraid of was chronic pain. I consider myself very, very lucky that I don't suffer from chronic pain as part of my FSHD, but many people with this condition do, usually brought about by muscle damage. Thanks again for listening. I've got a bunch more episodes up my sleeve, a bunch more people I'm going to record with, and I'll be back in your ears very soon. Until next time, stay warm. It's winter. Stay warm. Rug up. Get the hot water bottle going. Put some ponchos on. Put on a cuppa.